welcome to Hashtag Beavers Football. It is the pep rally show the day before the game, your show as you direct us with your tweets and your texts. I'm Katie Brown along with Slade Norris and Tim Ewis, of course, former Beaver greats with us. Put them on the spot, ask them the tough questions tonight. They're ready to answer as Oregon State stays on the road in the Pac-12 for the second straight week, looking to stay perfect in Pac-12 play and perfect on the road against Cal. What are you guys expecting from this one?
You know, Katie, the Bears are on a 4-game skid, and they're a caged animal ready to come out, and it's going to be a fierce game down at Strawberry Canyon. But the Beavers are coming off a strong victory over the Cougars. I mean, they played about as well as they could. So I'm excited for another game where both teams are going to air it out, and may the best quarterback win.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of air game like we saw in Washington State.
I'm excited to see the Beaver defense. They have a new kind of thing this week with the up-tempo offense. We faced the air raid last week, but now it's a little faster coming at us. I want to see how we communicate. I want to see how we do our assignments out there with all that speed.
All right, our opening drive now, of course, we have got to talk about, I love it, I heard this week, Mannion starting to get a little attention and will be on national TV tomorrow night, even though it'll be late on the East Coast. So hopefully Sean Mannion will get some more viewers across the country. What are your thoughts? He just keeps putting up those numbers week after week, leading the nation with 25 TDs. How much more to the Beavers? What do they have to do for him to seriously get in that discussion?
They just have to keep winning. As long as he stays stable and continues to do what he does, all the team has to do is support him and get those games. If they break into the top 25, show him some love right there. I mean, voters are already starting to recognize what he's doing. Just keep continuing his progress.
Slade, touchdown, Shawnee football. The nicknames are all over the place. But the bottom line is keep winning. To stay in that Heisman talk, you have to keep winning. And after this week, we still may not break in, to where we need to be in the top 25, but there is a backloaded schedule coming with some very good opponents. So that's really where the time will tell.
Yes, of course. This is really the final game on the Beavers schedule that everybody really looked before the year, that the first, 7 games were all winnable games, and then the real meat, tough part comes on the back end of the schedule. So this is a game that Oregon State goes in as a double-digit favorite, one they can't let get away on the road.
Rarely is a team a double-digit favorite, Katie. That's absolutely crazy in my book. When you're going on the road, I think California is a better team than that. They're installing a new system with a new coach. They're in a learning phase of where they're at and that chemistry, that character, those things that we always talk about to bring the team together. It's a closer game than that. But if the Beavers get on them early, they can score quickly. Defense can play well, create some turnovers, cause some havoc. It starts to fall apart, just like it did in the Palouse last week.
Yeah, they're definitely a learning team. They're a young team with a new system, as you said. And reading the blogs, reading the articles from last week, they thought that something clicked last week, the second half of UCLA. They saw some progress, and they lost the game, but they felt good about that loss. As a Beaver fan, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But you always hope with those young teams that there's going to come a time when all of a sudden they see that light. Hopefully this weekend, Oregon State, gives them a bunch of darkness.
And could you do it for me, Slade, one more time? What Coach Riley always told you about going to Cal? Could you imitate him?
Coming off a cold, I'll try here. But down in Corvallis, we would always come back, and he'd have one thing to say. And you know what? Guys? Jiminy Christmas, we always win at Cal Stadium.
It's true, too. The Beavers have a great history down there. I never lost to Cal. I never lost to the Beavers as a player, to Cal as a player or a coach. So, we have a great tradition of beating the California Bears.
All right. We want to take your questions and tweets, of course, if you coming in. And if you have time, come join us at Blitz Lad in Southeast Portland. I see a couple Beavers fans in the crowd who have their questions prepared to bring to you guys tonight. So, and we also have a special guest coming up in the show, which we will let you know about before too long. All right. Well, we may even bring our guests on in the next segment. We'll be talking more about the Beavers offense, about the matchup with Cal. We'll be taking your texts and tweets and live questions from Blitz Lad as we continue coming up on Hashtag Beavers Football. Oregon Portland State is at Berkeley tonight, getting ready for the big game against Cal, and we are here at Blitz Lat in Southeast Portland, getting you ready on hashtag Beavers Football. Send in your text, tweets, your questions, your emails. Come down live. We have a guest here we're going to get to in just a moment. It is first down, though, guys. Time to open up the play here, and we are going to our first tweet of the night. This is from LLDT1. It says, with Cal losing the last 4 games, how hungry does this make the Bears to gobble up the Beavers? And you know what? Cal has had one heck of a schedule, the 3rd toughest schedule, I think, in the nation. Non-conference games against Northwestern and Ohio State. Their losses, the teams are like a combined 25-5 this season, so they've had a tough one. They clearly are motivated.
With a schedule like that, you never want that coming with a young team. Coach Dykes was saying earlier in an interview, you know, we didn't want that. We got what we're dealt, and we made a lot of progress. So he's proud with the way the team's gone on. I mean, Oregon State coming in 5-1, they're 1-5. It seems like teams going in 2 different directions, but that really isn't the case. They've made great strides these last couple of weeks.
You know what I look at, Katie and Slade, is where they're going, where they've been. They've played a whole bunch of spread offenses, and that's tough to prepare for. They haven't been able to be blitz happy. I think Coach Dykes would like to blitz quite a bit more. He's had to keep it really simple on defense, trying to stop, you know, the Northwesterns, the Washington States, the teams that want to just run and chuck it out of that spread offense every down. And I worry a little bit about going down, you know, to Cal and having a pro-style offense where maybe they have a chance to pin their ears back and blitz a little bit like they like to. But I'll be honest, I don't see any Cal Bears gobbling up any Beavers this weekend.
You don't see it happening. You know, they barely got by Portland State early in the year. That was their one win against Portland State. And you're right, it's been the games against, I think they went Northwestern, Portland State, Ohio State, so they had a tough one.
Oregon, exactly. It's just been a gauntlet for them.
They have played them all. All right, it is time now to go for our first live guest of the night, Tom Calabrese from Portland, proud Beaver. He's wearing it here tonight. Tom, what's your question?
Oh, it's a great show, by the way. First question, if you don't mind, I got a couple questions. First question's for Tim, because you played offense for Mike Riley. He typically starts his first drives with a pass. Almost every game this year, I've watched them all. I wanted to ask you, does he script his first plays like Bill Walsh used to do for the Niners?
You know, a lot of teams that I played on scripted the first 15. And there's even NFL coaches that script the first 15 of the second half. Coach Riley never scripted the first 15. There's some plays you want to hit early. We always kind of had a coaches meeting on what the first play would be, and guys would get to throw their opinions out. I don't think my first play ever got chosen, but, you know.
Tight end screen?
Yeah, it's tight end screen. Every time I want to run the tight end screen and then hit denied. You got to set that one up a little bit. But to answer your question, they call the first play, and then from there on out, it's a poker match, and it's just kind of the best hand wins, and they call the best plays.
Yeah. One thing I question sometimes is because the first play is usually a play action, and we haven't run the ball yet, so I was just curious why he doesn't pass with the first play when you haven't run the ball yet. So
I think they assume we're going to run the ball, so they head to that.
Second question is for both of you gentlemen. I would like you guys to put your shoes in Michael Doctor's shoes. You possibly have a medical red shirt. You've already graduated from college. You don't have much of a portfolio yet in the college ranks for the pro draft. Do you come back or don't you?
You definitely come back. I mean, he hasn't done enough to really get recognized from the NFL, so he's got to come back this year and really show what he can do, because he's a great talent. He's a great athletic guy. I mean, he can do some really special things next year.
Well, a guy like Michael Doctor, I think his best football is still ahead of him. His best game last year was against UCLA, in my opinion, where he played that spy linebacker, tracked Huntley very well during that entire game, and you just saw kind of a glimpse of what he could be. He has the ability to run sideline to sideline, but he's undersized to play in the NFL. It's phenomenal that that kid has graduated. He's where he's at. I would redshirt if he has that opportunity.
And it's really a credit to Coach Riley at Oregon State to have players like that who go through, graduate in 4 years. I mean, that's great to see.
Yep.
And I'm guessing that's the answer you wanted. That
I was hoping they were going to answer that. Yeah, I wasn't giving you the answer, but I want to hear it from them. But if you don't mind, I got a 2.5 questions. I got a question for my son.
Oh, okay.
And we're having this debate.
What's his name?
Vinny.
Vinny, all right.
We're having this debate at home. if you've got Sean Mannion and Brandon Cooks having such a great year this year, if you had to choose one of them to be a nominee for Heisman, not the winner, just the top 5 nominee, which one would you go with?
This is a live show, and we never know what direction it's going to get. We have 2.5 questions out of Tom already, but what do you think? I think the quarterback is always the guy that's going to win out in this day and age. I mean, when was the last time a true skill position or a defender won the Heisman? Top 5 voting, I think Sean Mannion's your guy to get into that top 5. Does Brandon deserve to be in that talk? 100%. That tandem is phenomenal, and it's fun to watch them play. But the quarterback is the premier position that's going to get votes.
I think with what Brandon has done, he deserves it, I think, more than Sean. But just because of the way the voting system goes and how it's all ranked and everything, the quarterback will always win
2,500 yards and 25 touchdowns.
That is impressive.
All right. Well, I think Tom just set a record for 2.5 questions on our show, and they were great questions. So we thank him, and we want you to text and tweet and email your questions. We're going to go now back to social media and a tweet from Fred Froggy, who says, more storm on the inside screen, eh? And maybe in the flat. Also reminds me of Steven Jackson out of the backfield.
Reminds me of days in Buffalo where all the guys would come down from Toronto and say, hey. My senior year, we played down at Cal. Steven Jackson, it was such a threat running the ball. They would run swing fakes to a guy like me catching the ball on a tight end middle screen. I was able to take it to the house just because of that Steven Jackson influence. A guy like Storm has that ability, what he's done out of the backfield and in the screen game. So I'd continue to look to see him, if we're not running the football as effectively as we want, in that screen game.
And watching that UCLA game tape last week, they run a ton of swing passes, the running back out in the flats, getting him out there with that speed. I'd like to see us copy.
They ran swings to the running back. They ran bubbles to the wideouts off the fake handoff. So much of that was 10, 12-yard passes to guys in the backfield and letting them make one-on-one plays in space.
And it's key, the receivers were blocking. They're doing a great job.
Receivers did a great job. That was different for UCLA.
All right, mixing it up here, going from offense to defense. Megan Harper has tweeted in, defense has been improving all season. Has any player emerged as a defensive emotional leader who rallies the troops? Slade.
In my opinion, that's always been Rashad this year. I mean, he's that veteran leadership out there. He's the guy. I mean, 2 forced fumbles and 2 interceptions in one game. Are you kidding me right now? I mean, if that can't rally the troops, I don't know what will.
You got to think a guy like Nelson, though, just with his play, has gained some votes in that area. And in both the corners, I mean, it's not like they're going to rally behind one guy or the other. They're going to rally behind whoever's making plays, and it's exciting. And Wynn can be that guy, and Crichton can be that guy. There's a lot of guys that are making plays for the Beavers defense right now.
I'd like Murphy to be that guy this week. I like the way he's progressed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are just getting started here on hashtag Beavers Football, getting you ready for the big game at Cal as the team gets ready down in California. So stay with us. Send in your text, tweets, and emails. And coming up next, we will have a former Beaver great from Tim's days on the team join us here on set. We now have 3 former Beavers and 3 former NFL players on the set with me, ready to answer your questions. So text or tweet in. It's hashtag Beavers Football. We welcome on the set Aaron Cook, who, well, Tim tells me, of course, played in the Beavers in the late 90s. Tim tells me he played guard, but he looks way too thin to have played guard. Welcome to the set, and tell me, how much weight have you lost since you were playing football?
Thanks, Katie. It's great to be here with Slade and Tim and you here on tonight on hashtag Beavers Football. Yeah, I've lost about 80 pounds since I've been an offensive lineman at Oregon State. So people ask me what position I used to play, and they laugh that I'm an offensive lineman or former offensive lineman. So.
Aaron got his burger here, like, I don't even know what style it is, but it's just like with the leafy lettuce around it. No bun, nothing good on it, but he looks good.
I got to stay looking good.
Oh, my goodness. And you were playing when Mike Riley came the first time.
Correct. I had 2 years with Riley, so it was great to play for Mike, and just loved playing for him.
Did you do the hip hips back then?
Excuse me?
Any hip hoorays?
Oh, yeah, hip hips, definitely. I remember when he brought that into the locker room, and what a joy that was. Hip, what does this mean? I mean, but it was great. We rolled with it. It was awesome.
So really, Aaron, we'll get, of course, if you have any questions for Aaron, go ahead and throw. As long as he's on the set, he's fair game. You can fire away. But really, you were at Oregon State then during the whole transformation period when that program really started turning around, when before Riley came in and then heading into the Erickson years. So what is this like to you to see a team that's, in contention, has really been one of the top teams in the Pac-12 when you look back over the past decade, that you were part of starting that?
I take a lot of pride in that. Coming into Oregon State during the dark years, and then seeing where they're at today, a Pac-10 contender, one of the top 3-4 teams in the Pac-12 now every year. I take great pride in that because, my senior season was 99 and Tim's redshirt year when we went to the Oahu Bowl. First bowl game in 28, 29, 30 years. It was, it's awesome just to look back and see that hopefully I helped, and Tim and Slade helped pave the way for this.
And 3 Oregonian football players here as well.
I was just going to say, all local kids. We got, from different parts of the state. We got Jesuit High School here. We got Eugene. We got McNair. I mean, we got the whole area covered.
It is, and I think that's special, and that's always been a special trait of Oregon State football, recruiting the local kids, getting them on the field for the fans, and that's, I think, why Beaver Nation is so supportive of us.
You grew up in the state of Oregon. You wanted to stay in the state of Oregon. That's how I was.
I agree.
I had an offer to Oregon, going to the Rose Bowl my senior year. I had an offer to Oregon State. I turned Oregon down, and I never regret it.
Wow. See?
Take pride in that.
A true Beaver right there.
Exactly. That is a true Beaver. Yeah. Well, all Oregon guys and all guys who played in the NFL. I mentioned that briefly, but that is another select group, too. So I am an elite Beaver company definitely up here on the set. All right. We'll keep your questions coming in by text, tweet, and email, and we'll get back to the social media now. A tweet from Mark Hoffmeister, and I guess Tim has to answer this one first. We were going to talk tight ends because we have some injuries going on there, but it says, without Connor Hamlin tomorrow, how do you think Caleb Smith will do? Caleb's hurting too.
Sure, yeah. I looked at that and I thought back to my career, Katie, and first start I had in the NFL, we were getting ready to play the Carolina Panthers, and I went out on Friday and I might have busted 12 assignments because I was just so hyped up and excited to have my first start and get after it. And I went out in the game and pretty much performed flawlessly because I got all those errors out of the way. So I'm really hoping that Caleb got those errors of being the man out of the way during practice. And Caleb worked extremely hard. I saw him as they were boarding the bus today, and he looked like he was getting ready to play a game and go on a business trip. So I think they'll be just fine. And it's not just Caleb. You also have Perry. You have Kellen Clute. You have a lot of other young talent at that position. And Connor's a great loss because he was so versatile in that offense. But I think the other guys will be able to step it up. Connor can get healthy and come back for the next week of football.
What I like is that Caleb had a great game last week. He made some clutch catches and some great points. He got Mike Parker's game ball on Talking Beavers
this week. And he has for the last several weeks. He's been increasing his role in the offense. And Aaron, just as well as anybody, when they're starting to call your number more, it means that you're more productive. You're a guy they're looking to get the ball to.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the chance for the young guys to get involved. This is the time where they get a chance to rise to the top and show their stuff. I have to say, I'm not really nervous about it because I think the 3 guys with Perry and Clute especially, that I'm not nervous about it. I think we're going to be fine.
I agree.
All right, we have a defensive tweet I need to get to, but first I want to ask you, Aaron, given that you came from the offensive line, the Beavers offensive line was like a hospital ward for the infirmary for the first couple weeks. What did you see in Washington, in that Washington State game? Do you see now that the guys are healthy again? Can we expect that to help out the running game? What do you see going into the second half of the season?
I was really happy to see their performance. We got a run game going. We got over 100 yards on the ground again for the second consecutive week. You have your senior leader in Grant Enger back, and you had some more chemistry going.
How
I was
about
really
the
proud.
Sacks, though? The protection's been unbelievable.
I can't say something. 7 sacks only in all of the season yet this year.
For what Katie just referred to as a hospital ward.
For a patchwork mash unit offensive line, they're doing phenomenal. 7 sacks only, okay? This offensive line crew is doing very, very well. And I think they're just getting better every week. When Andrews gets healthy, he'll be back in. But I got to give a little bit of a shout out to Sean Harlow. I think he's doing a phenomenal job as a true freshman. I couldn't have stepped in and done that as a young kid coming in. Injuries, now your time to shine. And he's done really well. Still a little inconsistent. He's working on it, but he's got a bright future at Oregon State.
Well, thankfully, they're getting healthy at just the right time as they're heading into the second half of the season. All right, we go to a defensive question now, Slade, so we'll let you go first. This is from Benjamin Fenimore, who asks, why haven't the defensive ends, Crichton and Wynn, had more sacks this year?
It's been hard for them this year because they really had to carry that D-line. They had two newcomers coming into the middle there with their two D tackles, and so they've really had most of the offensive line's attention that they've been playing against. So a lot of double teams they've faced. And I think as the season goes along, I think that'll start to even out. They'll get more chances, and I think we'll see more production from them this year.
You know, the other thing that I think adds to it are those spread offenses, Slade. And
that's a great point, too.
Just looking at Cal, I think their D-line is more productive and does cause some concern for the Beavers than they have actually played, because they play so vanilla against those spread fast offenses, and they can't get to some of those more interesting or fun or creative blitzes that they'd like to in those packages. So I think there's a few things that are going on for the Beaver defense.
And even speaking from experience, going against those spread offenses, it really slows everything down because you're so worried about, okay, where's the ball? What's happening? All these smoke and mirrors going on. It slows down your pass rush, so it really does affect you.
And Cal commented on that this week, and Aaron and I were talking about it before the show, that one of their safeties actually came out and said, it seems, you know, we're excited for this because they play so much slower than some of the other teams. We can be a little more creative.
I'd like to temper that slower comment down a little bit, because I think our Cal secondary here has a little bit of a rude awakening. You got the #1 tandem in the country in Cooks and Mannion, so I don't know if slower would be the opportune word.
Slower between plays, but
tempo,
maybe more high-powered.
Yeah, so maybe not slower.
Yeah.
I love it. See, Aaron is still getting fired up, you know, 14 years after leaving Oregon State. These comments just get Aaron. Okay, Aaron, it's been so fun having you. Will you stay with us for another segment?
Absolutely. I'd love to be around.
All right. We still have another segment to go with Aaron, so keep your emails and your texts and your tweets at #Beavers Football. Give these guys the tough ones. They're ready for them. We will be back with all your questions on #Beavers Football. We are glad you're with us for #Beavers Football as we get ready for the big game against Cal tomorrow night. Of course, the Beavers are in California tonight, and we've talked about in the first half of the show how well they do at Cal, but no gimme game. Cal doesn't have a great record, but they've played a really, really, really tough schedule. Their losses are to teams that are 25-5. I'm Katie Brown along with Slade Norris, Tim Ewis. We got Aaron Cook, our special guest, staying with us on set here. And Slade, I got a tweet and a text in. This says from Nick, I have a question for Slade. Have you ever thought about being an assistant coach for the Beavers? Because I think you'd be a great addition to the staff.
That's a great compliment, because I know I have a lot of respect for our defensive coaches. And it's funny he says that because both these guys have made appearances with the Oregon State coaching staff.
You know, as a senior, Aaron came back and was kind of an intern at Williams rehabbing from one of his NFL injuries, and that's where our relationship got back in tune, and we've stayed in touch over the years. While he was playing, we had the same agent in the NFL. But tell me about your experience translating for Gilly.
Well, Coach Gilstrap, Coach Jim Gilstrap, is unfortunately no longer with us. What a phenomenal human being. Enjoyed working with him. Kind of, you know, your senior season, Tim, come around 2003. Was able to come down and kind of unofficially intern with the team and had a great time.
And you had guys like Roy Schooning,
Kyle Devan.
You know, now
Adam
a coach
Coates,
with the staff. Adam
you know,
Coates
all
won a
NFL
Super Bowl.
players.
Yeah.
Do you get the same thrill coaching as you did playing when you guys were involved in those roles?
You know, it's different. I say it to my high school players all the time. I've won enough in my lifetime, Katie. I don't need to win anymore. I want them to feel that same experience I do. And it's fun to go and see a game plan that you helped develop executed properly. But it's more fun to see the players have that same experience, that same winning that you had and enjoyed.
And for me, it was like no greater joy than translating that. And I want to say wisdom. It's not just knowledge, but wisdom.
Yeah.
On the field, to be translating, giving them that wisdom, because be able to teach them the skills that you learned because you were there once. You were in their spot, and to give that to them, I had no greater joy than seeing them succeed.
John Wooden wrote the book on coaching, and coaches are teachers. And if you can teach football, that's what I enjoyed. I'd like to see Slade teach football, because I think he's a good communicator. He'd be able to do it.
I appreciate that. And, you know, I love football. I never want to get too far away from the game, so I'm not going to close it out. But I have my little brother. I've never been a coach yet, but I know I try to coach him up. And going to watch his games, I'd be more nervous for his games than I'd be for my own.
I agree.
So I can imagine how I'd be coaching.
All right, we are getting into third down on hashtag Beavers Football, and we have some social media to get back to. We get to a tweet now from Hunter Hendrickson that says, what do you think about Victor Bolden? I think he may be the future of Oregon State football.
You know, he is a great talent at receiver. He's got the speed. He's got all those fly sweep things you're looking for, Katie. And the play that I looked at today that I think can be part of the game plan down at Cal, we looked at that, the fly sweep action. And when you're faking that run, you're bringing a guy around on fly sweep. UCLA ran that over and over and over. And in the first quarter, they hit a huge play down the middle, a 40, 50-yard reception that set up their first touchdown. And the way the safety tried to adjust to that fly sweep action, took himself out of the play, really put them in a bad coverage position as a team. Katie, that's a huge chance for a guy like Victor Bolden to have a huge impact and really make his name at Oregon State with some of the great fly sweep runners. Sometimes as a decoy, but also getting the ball in space. I mean, when you have to defend a guy like that, that's huge, isn't it, Slade?
It definitely is. The speed he has, and I mean, he just runs with reckless abandon out there. I love watching him play. He looks like he's having fun, and as a freshman, that's what you want to have. A guy that's excited. He has a lot of just excitement when he's playing out there. He wants to be out there. So I love the guy, and he reminds me a lot of how Brandon Cooks first came in.
Yeah, exactly. You look at a guy like Brandon Cooks, you can line two of them up on the same side now. Run one of them in motion. The defense has to make some changes, Aaron.
Guys, I will temper your statements, though. I see a lot of, young James Rogers. I see a lot of, young receivers of the past that have run the fly sweep effectively. However, I still think he's got the same thing that Sean Harlow has. He's a true freshman.
Yeah.
I still think he's got a lot more in his consistency. His kickoff returns are still not where they need to be. So I'm going to temper yours. I see great future.
I just blocking out at wideout. He can become more consistent
on
blocking.
The bubble screen.
The physicality of the game, he'll have to learn some of that. But you let Brandon block for him, and you let him catch the ball and make moves in space. There's some options.
With
At
that fly,
it's pretty good company, the names that we're talking about, though, associated with him if he reaches his potential as he grows.
Oh, definitely. I was just going to say, with that fly sweep, too, the more success he has with that, it's only going to help our running game as we go forward this year. That'll open up things for us.
Okay, we get back now, and we have a tweet from Mateo that says, aside from the passing and kicking game, where else will this team show consistency as they enter the second half of the season?
Where else do they need to show consistency?
Yeah, where else will they? But where do they need to? Where do the Beavers really need to shore things up as they head? And obviously not looking past Cal, but now we're getting into, the meat.
Well, Slade and I were just talking about this during the break, too. I think there's two spots on defense where they need to shore up their spots. I think they need to shore up on tackling. They need to be more consistent. They came on the second half of the Washington State game and did a much better job. And I think they need to do also a better job showing up their pass coverage. Again, second half of Washington State, different story. Looking back for the ball, making plays. And look, 4 interceptions or 5 interceptions or whatever it was. They made some good plays. But I think as we go into that last stretch of the season, they got to shore up on tackling and pass defense.
I'm going to agree with you, but kind of disagree a little bit. I like the fact that they're making halftime adjustments. A lot of fans were critical early on in the season, saying they don't make enough halftime adjustments. And you've seen the last several weeks, the Beavers have come out and played well in the second half. So now what adjustments do you make for the second half of the season? Well, where we're at health-wise, I think you can continue to install things on defense, Slade.
I think so, too. And I know Banker has, a very large book that he goes through, and he's only really unleashed a small portion of that, trying to keep these things simple for the guys. So as things go on, just the whole mental aspect, as we introduce these new blitz packages, these new sort of defenses to cover the spread and stuff like that.
So what else do we have to unleash? We've unleashed the Crichton. What other packages do we have to unleash?
We've got some stuff there. I'm not going to give anything away yet. But we got some stuff for Oregon and teams that they haven't seen yet.
I like it.
All right, great. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. It's been so fun having you up here with us tonight, keeping these guys in line. Again, Oregon boy, NFL player for 3 years, and so it's our pleasure, and we look forward. Maybe we'll have you on again.
My pleasure, too. I love it.
Silverton nearby, a local guy. All right. When we continue on hashtag Beavers Football, we are going to hear from Steve Priest and his insight, and I have a tweet here that, some Beavers fans might be a little worried about. We'll get to that when we continue.
Good pressure on the outside. Again, Crichton. And look at the pick. Steven Nelson, Oregon State's new cornerback, scores. It's a game winner.
We are live at Blitz Lad in Southeast Portland with hashtag Beavers Football, your show as we get you ready for the Cal game tomorrow night. Of course, last weekend, the Beavers just had a field day with all the interceptions in the fourth quarter at Washington State. And in this week's Extra Point, Steve Priest talks about making the most of those turnovers.
The most meaningful two statistics in football, in my opinion, are third down conversion percentage and turnover rate. From those come sudden change points. You score points, get people off the field, and it evolves into wins. Oregon State is 5-1 this season, and of those 5 wins, 3 of them are direct results of sudden change points to either save or win the football game. They started early in the season. We're going to take a look first at the Utah game. The Beavers are cruising along here. They're playing pretty well. They're leading by 2 touchdowns, and the second half starts. You'll see that when it starts, the Beavers are in a third down situation. It's a tough go for the Beavers, but they play it, and it's the Travis Wilson first pass of the second half. Let's take a look and see what happens here. Wilson's here. The cornerback, Sean Martin, picks it off by playing a great zone. He runs to the outside. Look at the block by Scott Crichton right there, and it's a touchdown. Now, this doesn't seem like a big deal because the Beavers are up by 3 touchdowns at this point, but they end up winning in overtime by less than a touchdown. That was a game changer. If you recall last weekend, Stanford learned Utah is a tough place to win. Second game, the Beavers rolled right into San Diego State and didn't play a very good football game, to tell you the truth. They were behind. They weren't playing well. Sean Mannion got the offense back into the game, and with 5 minutes to go, the Beavers scored to get within a touchdown. Still, San Diego State had the football, and we're going to be conservative with it. Key third down situation, the Beavers have a chance to put some pressure on a quarterback from the outside and force a play that we'll take a look at. Watch this right here. Good pressure on the outside. Again, Crichton. And look at the pick. Steven Nelson, Oregon State's new cornerback, scores. It's a game winner. It changes the season, quite frankly. It gives the Beavs that big third win of the season. It was a big deal. And then this last weekend against Washington State, everything broke loose. The epitome of this. The Beavers took a tight game, a seesaw game just after the half, where they'd been leading at the half, went down a touchdown, scored on a tough situation when Washington State tried to go ahead on a 4th down with a fake punt, had a miscommunication, Beavers got it and scored. Now they're ahead, and the Beavers have a string of 5 plays where they have 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, and it's game over. Let's take a look at how that happened. Connor Halliday, the great quarterback at Washington State, starts out right here. Senior cornerback Rashad Reynolds picks the ball off. They get it right downfield. Stormwood scores from the 2. Very big changer right there. And then the same thing. Rashad Reynolds on a great play in the zone. Drops back into it, picks it up. Look at this throw to the inside. Play pass, Brandon Cooks, #1 receiver in the country, folks. And that touchdown put it nearly out of reach. But it doesn't end there. Steven Nelson picks off his 5th interception of the year, leads the nation, leads the Pac-10. And this is what happens. A hook and go, and look at that throw. Right between 2 defenders. A perfect pass, a perfect play. Sudden change points that won the football game for Oregon State. Sudden change points win games, and they win seasons. Watch for this situation the rest of the season. Third down conversions, turnovers, and sudden change points. The Beavers win them. They have a chance to have a great year. That's my extra point for this week.
Of course, the Beavers, welcome back from Steve Priest, lead the Pac-12 with 12 interceptions that they've been making happen, especially in the fourth quarter last week. And so they obviously, does that kind of momentum carry on to the following week when you have a big quarter like that they did in Washington State?
I'd say definitely, especially having it be the fourth quarter, getting a huge win in a place that we know is a tough place to play. I think it definitely does.
You know, Katie, I blogged about that earlier in the week on csnnw.com on my blog, and the turnover ratio that the Beavers have is phenomenal. It's one of the top 10 in the country. If they can continue the pace that they're on, they could lead the country. Those turnovers always increase the probability of winning. And you go from maybe assuming Washington State gets a field goal out of that possession to us scoring a touchdown. That's a 10-point swing. And when you take 10 points off the scoreboard, the chances of winning are much greater. When you get 4 turnovers in the second half, that really increases the odds.
Especially getting those points off turnovers. As an offensive player, they always tell you to flush your last play if it's a bad one. But when you get that, if you fumble the ball and they go down and put 7 on the board, how much harder is that to forget about?
Oh, you look at the scoreboard and you're like, oh, we just dug a hole. We got to start digging out, dig it out, dig it. And it's tougher every play, every turnover. You just lose confidence. And with every turnover, the Beaver defense gains confidence.
All right, and Tim mentions his blog on csnnw.com, and it is fantastic. You have to read it because he puts all these little personal stories in there from his years playing in several of them, and it's just a fun read as we get a little glimpse of your football life through some of your insight along the way often. All right, it's time. Send in your texts and tweets, but we have a few live guests here with us at Blitz Lad, and we go to Matt from Beaverton live at the mic. What's your question, Matt?
Tim, earlier today, you compared yourself on Twitter to the great motivational speaker Matt Foley, of course, one of Chris Farley's great SNL characters. So first, to Beaver Nation, can you confirm you're not living in a van down by the river? And secondly, can you guys talk about how Mike Riley and the rest of the coaching staff has gotten this team back on the right track after that devastating Week 1 loss?
Matt, I do not, in fact, live in a van down by the river. Now, the guy that lived in the college house beside me ended up moving out of his house to live in a van down by the river. I was drinking coffee for about 3 hours straight at my house today because it's been a whirlwind of a week after seeing the Patriots last week and moving through Boston and coming back home and flying all over the country. But we're here tonight. We're talking ball. We're having a lot of fun doing it. And coffee is what keeps me going.
Now, Coach Riley has done a great job bringing these guys back from that Week 1 loss. I mean, it had to be tough because it was a devastating loss. You know, you're not playing a D1 opponent right there, a D1A opponent at least. But he's done well, and that's what he's done in the past. I mean, coming from my years, we lost games early. He always seems to rally the troops and be able to get guys to still play his scheme and still buy into the system.
You know, nobody builds the dam like Coach Riley, and nobody rallies the Beavers, and that's the fact. There's been some poor starts, but they're always great finishes, and one poor game starting off, I really like where the Beavers are at, and now we're looking for that strong, traditional Coach Riley finish since he has rallied the troops and built the dam.
It's always that finish that's the most important part. All right, Matt, thank you so much for your question, and it is time now to head to break. But first, when we come back, I told you before about that tweet we had that might make Beaver fans a little nervous. We will get to it right after this commercial break. It is time for the Standard TV and Appliance What to Watch For against Cal tomorrow night, and our What to Watch For comes from our Trevor Lofton tweet tonight, who says, over or under Sean Mannion passes for 4 touchdowns. Sean Mannion is certainly the guy to watch for, so over under 4 touchdowns. What do you guys have?
Yes. Sean Mannion, 4 touchdowns. They're playing 4 cornerbacks right now, Katie. And you know, Aaron talked about our O-line being a mash unit. Cal's total defense has 4 starters from the beginning of the season playing. So at cornerback, it's by committee. And all of those guys, they've given up big plays. They struggle in space. You look at what Washington State was able to do to them. You look at what UCLA was able to do to them. 20, 21, 15, 3. I don't care who they play on Brandon Cooks. He's not going to guard him. Brandon will be open in space. Sean will throw for 4 touchdowns.
Do you want to pick a number? How many do you think he'll end up? How many do you think he'll throw for?
Under 5.
Well,
over 4.
It was 4 was the over-under.
Yeah, I'll pick 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns, okay.
For touchdowns, Shawnee.
I want to go 4 in the air, 2 on the ground. I want to see some ground and pound a little bit this game too.
Okay, so you're going. Oh,
Wait,
you're
Sean
going
scoring 2 touchdowns on the ground?
Slade, really?
Sean diving in. No.
Okay.
I want to see Storm get in twice.
Storm's getting in twice. Gotcha.
All right, this is the tweet that I've been talking about because my husband and I have been talking about this at home, but finally Fred tweeted in about it. What are the chances of Mannion or Cooks leaving after this season?
Don't say stuff like that.
Let's not jinx the program right now. No, you know what? Let's be honest, Katie. 2,500 yards and 25 touchdowns. If Sean can keep that pace up, there's not an NFL team running a pro-style offense that wouldn't want to have him. And as much as the spread is a phenomenon right now, you look at the teams that win in the NFL, they run pro-style offenses. I was able to watch Tom Brady and Drew Brees this weekend live, and it was just showmanship. It was awesome. It was unbelievable. Basically watch 2 Hall of Famers in a pro offense going up and down the field. Sean fits that mold. Neither of those guys are extremely mobile.
Wait, did you just compare Sean Mannion to Drew Brees and Tom Brady?
I said he fits that mold. I didn't say he's there yet, but he is in that pro quarterback mold. And you know, he doesn't have the best feet leaving the pocket, but if those guys do it with their arm, they get the ball out. Sean can get it out. So does he leave? He has to continue to finish this season and play. He's looking one game at a time. As far as Brandon, I believe he's the best wide receiver in the Pac-12, possibly the country. Statistically, he's proven it. He has to show that against the better and better corners and talent that he will be playing against over the remainder of the season.
So revisit this question in another month?
Let's look at this question after the Stanford game.
That's a great point. At the same time, though, I know those 2 guys do bleed orange and black. So looking at this team, we got a lot of young guys playing now. They got to see a lot of potential coming back for next year. And, you know, if you don't go to a Rose Bowl, you always have unfinished business. So if we don't get that level of success that they want this year.
You know, I was talking to a guy like Matt Boyd today in the weight room, and he was telling me how coming back for his senior year was just so great for him personally, for his career, for his development. And I think you can experience that same thing in football. It's not always all about the money and getting the money right now, Katie. So you're right. They do bleed orange and black. This is their home. This is what they believe in. Those are their teammates. That's what could keep them around, just as it did with Matt Boyd in baseball.
That family unit that Coach Riley has.
One thing we haven't talked about, I'll just touch on, that Sean Mannion is going back near his hometown this weekend because he is from Pleasanton, California, a proud Foothill High School graduate like myself from Pleasanton, California. He lived right down the street from where I live. A few years after me, though. All right, it is time to get to our last social media of the night. This is a text. Slade, this is from your little cousin Bubba. It says, looking at the Pac-12 this year, who is the most difficult running back to stop?
The most difficult running back to stop. I definitely have to go with Washington's boy there. I mean, he is a load to tackle. And I'll say hi to Bubba real quick. But
shout out for Bubba.
Bubba, gotta love her, actually.
Wow.
It's a fun pet name. But yeah, they have a great run game going on, and he's going to be tough. It's going to be a hard thing. You saw what he did against Oregon.
You know, you've tackled those guys before, and I only had to tackle the little kick returners in the NFL, and those guys, you just have to wrap them up in space and they'll come down. You get a true load, a 200-plus pound running back. Those guys are difficult to bring down. So I agree with you. Running back at Washington, running back at Stanford, he's a load as well.
That's very true, too. And speaking of running backs, Cal, I mean, they have I played against guys with like Marshawn Lynch, Justin Forsett, J.J. Arrington. I mean,
they have a great tradition.
All those guys, Javid Best coming later. I mean, it's ridiculous what they've produced.
Okay, talking of Cal, we have 30 seconds left. Real quick, predictions for tomorrow night.
My prediction, 42-17.
Convincing.
You took my exact numbers.
All right, 42-13. They only get a field goal instead of a touchdown.
You know what? I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 45-13. I really think our defense has a great statement game and really builds on last week.
So it's a 10.5-point spread, and you're going no problem. They're going to blow right through that.
I think our D-line on the rush, Cal's had a lot of problems, even on twists, you know, looking at the TE twist. So I think our D-line gets a great rush.
As long as we can tackle this week.
Yeah.
Okay.